Welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. In just a bit, I am out the door to check out the new horror film, The Front Room. So what's the story on this movie? Well, it tells the story of a newly pregnant young couple that are forced to take in the husband's sickly stepmother. I'm not quite sure why, it just has something to do with his father's will. But anyways, when he passes away, they are forced to take in his stepmother. And let's just say, the good old wackiness ensues in a much more spooky way. Alright guys, this movie is written and directed by Max and Sam Eggers. You might know their name. They've written films like The Lighthouse and The Witch. I think they've worked on The Witch. They've been on part of the team. But anyways, this is an A24 film, and it's also their directorial debut, which I'm looking forward to. I always love seeing directors in this word plural, directorial debut. This film is also starring Brandy Norwood, Andrew Burnap, and Catherine Hunter. So you know what? It is enough of me sitting here yammering on. It is time for me to get out the door because I need to go see The Front Room. Welcome back, just getting home, and guys, this movie was not what I was expecting, and I don't necessarily mean that in a good way. So let's get this started, shall we? We're going to get things started with negatives, then move into the positives to end the video on the ever so important high note. One of the things about this film that I noticed is it doesn't want to dive in too deep on any of its subject matter. It keeps everything at a very surface level for this film. There are moments where this movie could decide to really latch onto something and dive into it to give the film a lot more depth, not necessarily an allegory horror, just diving into something to shine a light on it. For instance, there are moments in this film where you think that it may be going into something about generational abuse, possibly generational racism, the difficulty of being in a mixed race relationship with family members that might not be okay with that. There's a lot of avenues that this film explores, but it just kind of keeps everything like they put their toe in the pool, but nobody really wants to dive in this film. It keeps everything at a very surface, dare I say, almost campy level. I had a really difficult time taking this movie seriously, mostly because of its soundtrack. I'm sorry, but they use a lot of theremin music in this film. I don't know if you know what a theremin is, but it's something that's used very frequently, I should say, in old like sci-fi movies from the 60s and all. It's like a real high-pitched kind of whiny sounding instrument, and it uses sound waves and rather than any kind of strings or something like that. It's like a technical kind of instrument, and the movie's soundtrack is based almost all off of this theremin music. And for me, unfortunately, because I was raised on a lot of schlocky 60s sci-fi, that music did not really back up any kind of creepiness or suspense or anything like that. I don't feel like this movie was also necessarily a horror film. In my opinion, I feel like this movie played out more like a black comedy. The film decides not to dive in deep on any of its subject matter and replaces all of that depth with fart jokes and poop. lots and lots of poop. It is almost like a weapon that this woman uses throughout the entire film. And let me tell you folks, it gets to a point where you're just kind of done with those jokes, and you really want the movie to dive in deep on the subject matter that it just kind of plays around with. It also goes into different types of culty types of religion, some kind of folkiness to it, but nothing ever gets latched onto. This movie, as I said too, does not feel like a horror movie. At no point in time did I feel suspense, dread, any fear. I never really felt like anybody in this film was necessarily in danger. They were definitely getting the shit annoyed out of them. In some of cases, literally getting shit pulled out of them. But at no time do I feel like these people were in any danger of this decrepit old lady. And also, the film's trailer is a bit misleading. It really kind of makes you feel like you're going to be going into a film that's going to be a lot darker, more of a slow burn, surrealistic, religious-based kind of horror. And it ends up being more of a campy black comedy that has some laugh out loud moments, not gonna lie, even though the film doesn't really put a light on it, I guess you could say. It's just kind of there to break up some of the suspense, but there really isn't any suspense. So you're probably wondering, did I like anything about this film? Yes, honestly, yes. I did honestly enjoy this movie. I just found it fairly mid, to be perfectly honest. Things I really enjoyed about this. First off, I want to talk about Catherine Hunter. She plays the evil stepmom, and I like that I could actually say evil stepmom when it comes to this film. But anyways, she's outstanding. And honestly, her performance in this film is what really keeps you wanting to watch the movie and see where this is progressing. Not that Brandy does a bad job. She's actually also another big shining light in this film. Her performance was great. She was playing a mother who was trying to balance all sorts of shit that was going on in her life. She was having difficulty with her career because of her pregnancy, and then all of a sudden, on top of having a pregnancy and having a baby, she's now the caretaker for this decrepit old woman. And Brandy does a very good job of showing the stress and everything that's being piled up on her throughout the entire film. And I thought the movie did a very good job of showing that stress and everything that was being put on Brandy throughout the movie. Also, I did like the cinematography in this film. There are some absolutely amazing shots in this movie. There is one trick shot in this film that I absolutely loved, involving kind of like a, I guess you would say, fisheye type of mirror. It does a really cool trick. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a neat addition. And with all the tricks in the cinematography, it tried to kind of build some suspense, but unfortunately it never quite got there. But the film itself is just shot absolutely beautifully. All in all, guys, I would say I probably would have enjoyed this film a lot more if it would have been on a streaming service, if this was on Netflix, or I don't know what. I think A24 is on HBO Max, whatever the hell they're calling it this day, Discovery. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it was necessarily a film that had a real cinematic vibe to me, like theatrical draw. I think this film actually would do better if it was on a streaming service. I think it might feed into people's curiosity a lot more, especially on a weekend where something like Beetlejuice is opening up. Maybe release this movie a little bit closer to Halloween or something, where people are, really wanting to watch kind of a creep fest movie, even though this really, yeah, I would say it's definitely a creep fest movie, but it's not something that necessarily scares you. All in all, guys, what I'm trying to say is, in my opinion, unless this sounds like something you really want to see, if you want to see Catherine Hunter's just completely unhinged performance in this film, I highly recommend getting out there and seeing it in theaters. But in all honesty, guys, I would say this is a stream it type of film. Wait till it's on streaming. Definitely give it a watch then, but I don't think it's necessarily something that necessarily needs a theatrical viewing. Alright guys, well that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up if you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.